Daughter in the city, rushing to me. Down upstream, are you with me? Round up, rainbow. Daughter in the city, rushing to me. Down upstream, are you with me? Feel it.
Good afternoon, everyone. BC Richfield here, coming to you live from the beautiful Suffolk coast. Big shout out to everybody watching this live today and everybody that joined us on recording. We had some record numbers, well, for me anyway, obviously not the legendary crypto bird, but 7,000 people joined our stream on Monday, which was just awesome to see. So I've kept the tickers that we took a look at then, so we can take a look and see where we are on those. But as always, we are going to start with Bitcoin. All right, so a big shout out to everybody joining the chats as well. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and potentially even good evening. Now, for those of you that are there, I am traveling at the moment away at our little holiday property where we start the beginning of the year. So can you just let me know that the sound is okay? You guys can hear me all right? Maybe hear a few gulls in the background and maybe a few dogs running around downstairs. Good morning, Joshua. I hate it here. How are we doing, guys? I hope everybody is well. Hopefully we have got some decent sound. If you guys can just let me know. Good to go. That's what we love to hear. Perfect. All right. So people started to go Genius X. That is a brilliant little logo for the name, mate. Like that. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll kick things off, shall we? No interference. Awesome. Nice and clear. So, Dorian. So, Adrian is grafting away at the moment. So, doing many things, preparing to get over to Davos. And as always, kind of travel and represent TBN as well as trading, and obviously just being a real kind of talisman for the crypto industry. So Mondays and Wednesdays I run the live show here. Adrian still has his shows as well, but obviously we're all very fortunate to work together under his banner and under his company, which is the Bird Nest. So hopefully the TA doesn't disappoint today, Dorian, but I'm sure Adrian will be back with you all very, very soon. And you can hear me as well. Jojo, how are we doing, my friend? Good to see you here. Okay, well, let's crack on then, shall we? So really, really simple. Get rid of that for a moment because that's a lower time frame that we are going to take a look at. Well, first of all, actually, let's do this. Let's really, really zoom out, okay? Let's get our weekly levels sorted, what we're looking at, what the plan was, what we've seen, where these levels come from. So really nice and simple. We had this swing high, which was capping the market, continues to cap the market, along with this swing high here that's just above it. So what we've got, or not swing, but, it's a lower time frame swing, which we'll look at shortly. So this whole area has a lot of confluence through it. On a weekly scale, we can see we had a strong close above. We then look for retest expansion to the prior high, and the same while we hold above. As soon as we close back in here, then, the thought process here is that we're moving down for this swing low, which was our ultimate target and has been obviously for several weeks now. With this interim or internal low here, we then look for price to react back at this level. Had we got a close above here, would have been a sign of some real strength, okay? And then we would have expected Bitcoin to make a move on its all-time high. As it happens, we got the retest of our lower level. All right, price broke above this, and then we got this beautiful low wick down. So for me, this is still bullish here. We've reacted at the weekly gap as well, and that reaction at that gap, look how it barely touched this before it really, really took off. I'm really focused on where liquidity is resting, above old highs, below old lows. And then we're looking for the repricing within gaps here. All right, the market likes to be efficient. So what we often see here, a price reacting, obviously, as we can see with this one. Just to give you a quick example for anybody that's maybe new to these techniques, but we had a bullish gap down here. Price loves to rebalance these areas, sweep liquidity, look for that change in structure, shift in structure or break in structure. And then if we're looking at this from an element of support and resistance, this whole area through here is what was capping the upside, right? So when we got that strong close through, we have two options here. We look for probable longs here, or high probability longs, sorry, or we're looking for price to retrace to this level before pushing higher, okay? So as it stands, I know we're only halfway through the week, right? Or not even quite that. We're Wednesday, halfway through, the traditional market week. This is looking to shape up like quite a nice candle at the moment. Long downside wick, so it's showing absorption, meaning the buyers here have stepped in. We're back within this kind of range now. What we want to see in an ideal world is price close above this, in which case we then start targeting the weekly highs up to the all-time high. But if we don't get that, we really want to see this kind of close as this nice pin bar candle, or kind of, you may refer to it as a hammer candle. At the moment, it's a pin bar with a short nose. Obviously, we've got a lot of the week left to play out. So as we move down here to the daily, just take a very quick look at this. Perfect. Just take a look at the comments, guys. So I just got just away on the laptop at the moment. XRP to the moon. Awesome. Expectations. Yeah, we'll take a look at that in a moment, mate. Bank earnings looking good so far. Yeah, great insight there from Jojo. We're going to take a look at our traditional market catalysts as well. So let's take a look in a moment. But for now, let's take a look at Bitcoin on the daily. So going to flick back. Here we go. Now, I mean, this daily candle was just beautiful. Now, we would have preferred to have seen a larger body on here, in truth, because the issue that we had here was this. All right. We've come into this swing high here, and that was a pretty strong rejection. It left this kind of very strange long-tailed doji candle. We'd had a larger kind of body on that, then the expectation would have been to push up. Obviously, if we closed above this level like we did here, then we expect price to push up again. Henceforth, why we were bullish coming into today. Not just that, but we have inverted this gap here as well, okay? So as we see the gap inversion here, this was ultimately a bearish gap. What does that mean? Well, it means that we're expecting rejection at this area, right? Why? Because price is coming down. We've set a lower low. There's always a consideration that this is then setting a lower high to then set a lower low, right? And again, you're shifting structure then, right? Or breaking structure in that respect. So we saw that initial rejection, but then, it just played out perfectly down to the key level, tapped the weekly gaps, come back above now. Then when we closed above it with this candle here, this then becomes an inversion gap. The inversion gap here then basically means that this goes from resistance to support, and the fact that we've closed above this high, the swing high here on the daily, gives us even more confluence to the fact that we're now expecting that to offer support. So where does it leave us? Well, while we're above here, I'm favoring longs, right? This is the key area here, which is 99,518. And the reason that that's a really key area for me here, and also a key support and resistance area, if we pop our daily levels back on, we can also see that we have our midline through here, right? Let me get rid of that because I do prefer to see them represented as boxes. The other key level that we're now arguing with here is 97,288, right? The fact that we saw a really decent rejection here yesterday, makes us think that we're going to get this corrective move maybe down to this area here before we kind of push up higher. This will become more relevant when we look at this on the 4 hour, right? But I'm going to leave it on the chart for now. But quite simply, key resistance through here. So what do we want to do? Well, look what happened every time, right? Resistance, resistance, close above, back underneath. This was a very sneaky move. Deviation, midline holds. We close back above it again. Look, when you see these moves, these things are just designed to take out over leverage people, to chop up people, to get people out of the markets. Breakout above here, people are expecting this, right? And we didn't get that. Price ultimately came right back down into here. So what we did get is breakout traders up here who went long get stopped out. People then go short here. They then get stopped out. People then think the market's a scam. You retest this area and ultimately go higher. Now, we took liquidity above this high and then we broke down. So if we follow our principles looking at support and resistance, we're now back underneath this level. What do we look for? Well, we've got this very, very clear resistance. Why? Because look at the absorption here on these wicks. So we're looking for price to close below that before we expect it to move lower. Find support here, then we get the retest of this area, and that was beautiful. We then get the sell-off. So look, resistance. What do we have here? Large deviation, price gets back in the range. Large, well, not as large, but a decent deviation here. Strong body candle. My expectations here were that the price was then going to start gunning for the all-time high. As soon as we close back in this area here, then expectations, as was shared with members over at the Bird Nest, as well as, on Twitter and on Sunday in the Bitcoin report, this has been our level for a while, and now we're holding this level. We're looking for price to push higher. However, let me just get rid of this here as well. Now we drop down to the 4 hour, right? And this is where things really start to take shape for me. Let me just turn the session breaks off quickly. So when I was looking through here, right, there's no magic recipe for drawing support and resistance. I don't think. I think Dante, people like Dante SC are probably the very best out there as well. Trader Dank if you're looking at ranges too. But for me, with Dante's words ringing in my ear, you're looking for violence at these levels, fast expansions. So here, for example, our daily support level here is what led to this really big pump, and it wasn't just that. It's the fact that we took out this swing low as well. Yeah, really key low here. Price came in, took that out here. This is where we broke structure because we've gone from a higher low back above, and then from there you're just looking for your upside targets. Now, when I was looking here, I noticed that we had a key touch point here, bodies were holding here, and this touch point here. So as I traced this back, what I do typically if I see an area of confluence like this is I get out a horizontal line. You can find these tools here on your toolbar. If you go onto any that you use regularly, just press the star, and then it adds it to your favorites toolbar, which is this beautiful maneuverable toolbar at the bottom. So what I do is if I find an area of confluence like that, I just draw a horizontal line. Yeah. And then that way it allows me to check the area, and I say, okay, where's this anchored to? I like to find a point that it's anchored to. And for me, it was this wick. Yeah. This wick here, that wick doesn't really mean anything particular to me, but that's the origin of this resistance and currently resistance, but support level here as well. And look how clean, these touches are on here. And this is what we're arguing with at the moment, right? We saw this beautiful pump yesterday, a little bit fueled by really, really good PPI print. They were a long way off on PPI numbers. We've got CPI today, which is dropping in about an hour and 17 minutes. That's going to be very, very important. Consumer price index, really kind of see the hurt that's falling on, obviously we focus this on the US markets, but really kind of see the hurt that's kind of falling onto the average person in the US. Basically, the cost of living, which as we all know is, a little bit of a squeeze worldwide. So once we process the economic data, then we can kind of start looking into that. So while I'm looking for that, I still have a really key support area here, right? Look at the absorption coming in from these wicks, but look at the rejection that we've had here. 97,288, and my good friend, an incredible trader who works alongside me at the Bird Nest, Just Pitt. We were discussing this morning actually with the team, and he literally got exactly the same level. Some levels are just so clean and so obvious that they stand out. And the more people know about these levels, the more chance you see of having some kind of reaction there, right? So as we see this here, ultimately this proved to be a swing failure, at the moment. Price is now getting back beneath. So we really want to see this area hold. That's my real kind of, that's my playbook at the moment for Bitcoin. I'm not interested in shorting this. I'm not interested in longing this at the moment. What I'm looking for is to make sure that CPI doesn't, blow this out of the water. If we get a really bad print, we could see a deeper correction here. What I'd really like to see is a bigger flush to the downside, right? And I tell you as for why, and I know people will be like, oh, come on, BC, what the hell, let's just get back to the up only. Just don't know if, I think, institutions, major players were stacking up on Bitcoin down here. I think when you look at, these con artists that work for people like JP Morgan and stuff like that, who are coming out and saying, Bitcoin's a scam, it's got no intrinsic value, blah, blah, blah. And then you look at their balance sheet and you realize they are stacking tens of thousands of them. It's all games to these people. So, don't let yourself get tricked by them. you know, these fat cat idiots, they will just play you for fools all day long. Look, I'm not saying we're going to see a massive bull run off the back of this. I'm just saying, look at the data, look at the facts. Don't let yourself get put off by these news articles. For me, I see a major bank or someone coming out and saying that, and I'm pretty certain, I'm 80% that they're buying. All right. So that's always a way to look at it. You want to counter trade that. We also have Trump's inauguration coming up soon as well. There's so many things that can just really let this rip. DJen, hello, mate. Yargo, how the devil are you? Yeah, Jojo, I'd like to see a big flush, but we need to be prepared either way, I think, right? So what would a big flush look like? Well, I'd be looking more at the higher time frame, but getting back below mid-range here and having something like this, you would want to see a quick recovery of this level though, right? For continuation, because taking this out here, a deeper dive into this gap. Why? Because people will start getting bullish here already. And, you know, if you look at the leverage, bits and pieces like that, there's a very big chance that people just get wiped, all right? Over leverage gets taken out. What happens? Price flushes down. By the time these same people then start to get bearish back below this level, over leveraged again, market takes that liquidity, recovers, takes all the liquidity resting below this low, which there will be an absolute ton of, allows major players to step in and get their huge bids filled, and then we're away, all right? However, we might not get that. You know, we might get a good CPI print here, and what we might actually get from here is something like this, which is what I'd be looking for. I'd be looking for a staged approach here, just good recoveries of key levels, not interested in FOMOing into the pumps, right? I am looking for the retests here, right? I want to see price pull back a little bit. Doesn't have to retest this exact level, although I think that it probably would, right? When you look through here, for example, you know, just even if you take this, when you really kind of focus on the wicks, and I don't want to kind of draw too many lines on here, but on a lower time frame, it would be something like this. We'd be trading within this range here. Why? Because look, resistance, resistance, resistance back here. This area then offered support. This area offered support, led to a nice pump. So this is obviously a key area, a key battleground for buyers and sellers. So that's what we're ultimately looking at. Now, what we're going to do is, I'm going to take a sip of tea, and then 87k, Jojo, very, very interesting indeed, my friend. I'm going to take a sip of tea, and then if you guys have anything that you want me to take a look at, you know, have you got any tickers, have you got any particular altcoins, then do let me know. If not, I'll start working through our list from Monday, see what we got, how we got it. I love this name, Ukeflon, which if you read it properly is a very clever name. Saylor bought roughly 57,638 Bitcoins, which is 5.5 billion at 97,850. Looks like that level's acting as resistance now. Yeah, I mean, obviously the guy's a hero if you're a Bitcoin maxi. And just in general, what I love about him is just, he doesn't give two hoots, right? You know, he's got his methodology, he's got his strategy, he's got his beliefs, and he backs them to the hilt. So many people have doubted him, and all of them have been proven wrong so far. All right. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to continue. We always need to show caution. We don't want to be these people that are just aping in, right? But the flip side of that is, I really back Saylor. But you got to remember, guys, his timeline for this is years and years, right? So he's happy to hold, and he is really the king of the holding strategy, or hodl, right? For people that ask that, people just get flushed out. It's a very, very, very easy thing to happen, right? People kind of get worried, they get scared, they look at these things and they say, what if this thing goes to zero? What if it goes down lots? What's your time horizon? You know, why would I buy Bitcoin at 97k? Well, I'd buy Bitcoin at 97k if I believe that one day it's going to be, you know, 150k, 250k, a million, right? Now, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but how many of you would go back now and say, God, if I could find my younger self when Bitcoin was $100, I would just tell him to buy everything, or her everything that they possibly could. Yeah. So 97k could very soon, in the same amount of time, seem very cheap for Bitcoin. Now, obviously, the caveat here is that not everybody has 97k to own a Bitcoin, but the wonderful thing is we can buy parts of it. Like Jojo says here about XRP, for a long-term hold. Very, very good friend of mine, John, not involved in the crypto space at all. Magnificent, probably one of the best dev guys, in Europe. Works for major institutions, and he's been holding this for a long time, probably from before I was really into crypto, right? And just, every time the bull cycle comes around, I think we've been through 3 together now. He's just like, no, I'm fine. I'm just holding it. Since Ripple was born, he's just bought a load of it because he believes in the team, the product, he knows the technology. So understand your time horizon, right? That's a really, really key thing. Anyway, Palm AI, is that the ticker? Is it B Alpha? Palm AI, and then Guac. Oh God, really made me fancy some guacamole now. Right, cool. We're going to take a look at ETH in a moment, but the first thing we're going to do, remember, if you've got any tickers you want me to take a look at, please just pop them in the chat. Thank you, B Alpha. We'll take a look at that in a moment, my friend. Let's take a look at some XRP as well, shall we? See how our friend Jojo's holdings are getting on. Perfect. All right, so pop them in the chat. Apologies if it seems like I'm not massively engaged with the chat. I'm going to pop backwards and forwards. I've only got one screen with me today. So let's cover traditional markets for a minute. This is very, very important. We've got some really key news on here. So for me, what I'm looking for is I'm looking at the dollar index. I'm looking at bonds, focusing on the US 2s and 10s. I'm looking at the NASDAQ. I'm looking at the S&P 500, which I trade actively those instruments, right? But what I'm looking for with them is how they're painting the picture for risk. Does the market have a good appetite for risk? If the market has a good appetite for risk, our levels align, then the chances of entering successful long trades improve. We saw this off the back of the PPI print yesterday, which led to that pump. But we want to be cautious. So let's start by taking a look at the dollar index. Okay, so this is what we want to see. We want to see the dollar back below our range high level here. Yeah. And we want to see it continue to go down. Why do we want to see that? I don't have anything against the dollar, right? But what I really want to see as we look back through here is normally when conditions are super prosperous for the dollar, it can mean that there's a little bit of a flight to safety. All right. Now, not always, but if we align this with bond markets, and let's focus on the US 10s here, right? The 10-year bond is just incredibly strong at the moment. Yields are up to 4.76% as of today, and they peaked at 4.8. Now, why is that important? Well, bonds are buying government debt in the US, which is a very, very safe bet. So if you're a major fund, then at the moment, almost 5%, or let's be completely honest about it, 4.76% is pretty nice, right? Immediately, you're cutting against inflation. You're sitting there. You've got some safe returns coming in on your money, allows you to then allocate a little bit towards risk. What you want to see are the bonds pulling back so that there's not the return for the major investors, right? It means that they then have to be more creative. They have to look for other ways to kind of maximize their profits, or in a way that they can get the returns that their clients want. So overall, what does that then mean? How do we anticipate this? What do we look for? Well, then we go and we look at the equity markets, right? And I focus on the indexes like the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, for example. So let's take a look here at our NQ1 contract. You can find this if you just type in NQ1, go to all, yeah, and then when you see NQ at the top here, you drop down the NQ1 contract, all right? That is you've got all your data on there. If not, then what you're looking for are the forward-facing contracts, okay? Which at the moment is this one, which is NQH. But unless you're trading that, then it doesn't really matter. So this is a key level for me here on the NASDAQ. We look at this on the daily. We had this area here. This is where price pushed up, down, retest, sold off. We saw resistance here, deviation here. Then when we got back above, showed strength. And it's now holding this level. So for me, this is quite good when I'm looking at this for the risk bid. All right. I'm dropping this down to the 4 hour now and saying, okay, where would I want to be involved in this play? Well, this was a key low here for me. Price closed below this. I then look for these lows to be retested. Yeah, I need to see price close below, look for the retest. We didn't get the retest there. Price closed above it. So we then look at that as support. So that would have originally been a red line here, resistance. When we close above it, turns to support. And then we look for bullish continuation here on this retest. When we come back into this level, it's obviously a key level. I want to see price close below here to get bearish down to these lows, or hold this level, which we saw with these beautiful downside wicks, right? Again, obviously massively helped in respects by the print yesterday from PPI. But now this is, this is okay here. I think, the market's really sitting in here and looking for the CPI print today. But we need to remember as well, we've got this bullish gap here, which continues to hold price. All right, so while we're in this, I'm not interested in shorting, right? I want to see price establish itself back above this, continue to treat this as support. And then I think we push higher with key targets being 21,143. Now, I know that a lot of you are sitting here thinking like, come on, man, just don't really care about the NASDAQ and stuff. But this can tell us a lot. If the market conditions are good for risk, then they're typically good for Bitcoin. All right. Now, not always the way, as we know, but what you can do is you can overlay these. Yeah. And we can take a look. And as we see here, this is the price of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin grinding down here along with the NASDAQ. Bitcoin pumping here along with the NASDAQ, grinding down with the NASDAQ, grinding down. And now we're seeing that same pump again. Now, they're not always correlated, so make sure you understand the data. But ultimately, when we factor those different things in, it can give you a little bit of an insight to the market's appetite, all right? So gold hedging up to 2,700 level as well. Yeah, do you know what? I'm not really an active trader of gold, actually, Jojo, but that is very interesting. I work with some really fantastic gold traders. Actually, Bast, who used to work with us, who's a fantastic trader, was magnificent with gold. Some markets just really, really speak to you. It really suits your systems. Okay, the 10-year yield. There's misprice between the 10-year bond and US economic. I think the bond will quickly fall. Oh, NBA Young believe. Hello, my friend. That is a very, very good bit of insight there. I think that could be the case. I don't know. I think a good CPI print today as well could see that. We could see the bonds come down a little bit. But, let's ultimately see how that plays out. We want a low print, obviously. The 10-year yield is probably corresponding to commodity index. It has broken out. Yeah, good insight there as well, Jojo. So with that in mind, let me take a sip of tea and then we're going to start smashing into some of these alts. And we're going to start with our old friend, Ethereum. Where are we with ETH? So focus here, key weekly swing higher. Same with this one as well. Obviously, they're daily swing points. We have our long-term support resistance level through here, which we didn't come back down to retest. This is what I was really looking for here on ETH. My real, where I would be, and definitely don't take this as financial advice, but where I would be scarily exposed to ETH would be this level here. I'd be buying up ETH like there's no one's business, and as well, and looking at those kind of correlated assets as well with ETH, because I do think that these areas love to see a retest. We haven't seen one. Look at, when we're under here, when was that? That was August the 4th, right? So the last time this was resistance was back in January, obviously January 24. We then flipped this level here, which is really nice. This then held all the way from the flip from February until we lost the level here in August. Then from August through until November, this was resistance. No wonder we saw this pop here. Like, think about keeping a coiled spring, under your foot or under an object that you've got to force down. Eventually, when you give up, when you don't have the strength to hold that anymore and you give out, that thing is going to pop. So these offer really key areas. I love seeing retests of these areas. However, we also had a higher time frame weekly gap here that, again, very similar to Bitcoin, right? This was tested into, we found a really, really strong response here. We held this key low, and these lows here, these lows here are just, look at the absorption within a gap. For me, this is a key area. If the buyers stepped in aggressively before, how do we know they stepped in aggressively? All you have to do is look at the charts, right? Consolidation led to this. So, if we revisit this area, I'd expect buyers to step in again, and they have. Now, we don't know to what kind of point that they're going to kind of wane, but it's a level that we look for, and then we look for our entries on lower time frames. This area here is really, really of great interest, as is this one here. Now, I know it seems like a lot of levels, remembering that I'm a lot more focused on intraday trading, all right, and kind of lower term swings. But look, price gets back beneath, retest. This whole area is resistance. Pop, retest, support, price pumps. So for me, there's significance here. When we revisited this here, what happened? We wicked into it, took out this low, respected this gap, respected this all the way through here. Then we closed below it. All right. This is another level. We're going to look at this on the 4 hour, but very, very simply, this collection of lows here, there was absorption that led to this big pump. When we close back beneath this, this is the level that I wanted to see price get back above. Ultimately, we haven't managed to do that yet. And actually, you know, the daily candle here, which is coming off of an inside bar. For those of you that don't know the inside bar pattern, you can check out my Twitter account, BC_Richfield. And there's a post that is pinned to the top that teaches you about the inside bar pattern. But basically, it's this candle here. What you're looking for is a large body candle, yeah, that then, or, you know, sorry, the first candle has to be a candle that's larger than the second candle. This candle can't exceed the previous candle's high or low. This then gives us two ranges. All right, we have, I'll do it very quickly for you here. We have the range from the high of this to the low of that. And then you have an internal range, which is set by this candle here, which is the inside bar. All right, so take a look at that if that's of interest. But what it means when you get the inside bar is that it's normally at a point of indecision. All right, that means that the market's trying to make up its mind on where it wants to go next. Okay, so as we look at that, let's drop this down to the 4 hour now and look at some more kind of actionable plays. This is where the levels kind of really come into their own here. We saw price come down, tag into the weekly gap, you know, comes into the support area here, and look back above this level. We look for these levels. If this thing's going to break down like this, and this was a strong move lower, we want to see these levels here and here. We want to see those retested for price to move lower. When price doesn't respect those, closes above this comfortably and then above this, that's when we're saying, okay, price is probably ready to move up to the next level. Now, I've not had much exposure to ETH here because for me, this is a real kind of cluster of resistance. All right. This level here is massive. All of this support, now all of this resistance. I want to see price back above here. We have a little midline through here as well. All right, that we can see, look, very, very clean support and resistance. So ultimately looking for price to get above here, then I want to start building. Yeah, so price back above here. I want to start building. When you see that kind of momentum on the lower time frames, build some scalping positions in here. Then I want to see this overcome, hold most of those positions in, hold up to here, all right? Again, then if we come back down, we get back above here, you know, obviously we take some profit as we go along here as well, right? So take a little bit of profit, but only little bits, because really what I'm looking to do ultimately is build these kind of intraday positions with the expectation of adding to them, compounding as we move higher, and building them into swings. But when we get back above here, you know, really that's the next target. And I think this thing can really, really, really start to rip. Okay, so in terms of that at the moment, depends what kind of time frame you're trading this on, but this is the key area to hold. All right. This support level through here. We've got our higher time frame level here as well. Start breaking down a little bit more. Do I expect this level to hold? Wouldn't really be the kind of key level that I would be looking for here, right? I'd be looking more in here, but reactions down here, because there's always a chance that we could be coming back down for this low here. Do something like this, right? Especially if we start tagging into this level down here. So let's see how that plays out. But for me at the moment, I'm a little bit flat until we get the CPI print. Let me just take a quick look at some of the questions, and then we'll start looking at some of these. Pavel, hello, mate. I'd be curious to hear how you would look at one of the fairly new coins, e.g. like micro. Yeah, sure. Let's add that to our little list, shall we? Very, very good question as well, right? Because very different when you don't have a lot of that data. Now, obviously, we bring in a lot more kind of fundamental elements to this as well. So that's something that we want to consider. So either find really, really good analysts. If you're over trading with us at the Bird Nest, obviously we have people in-house. We have in-house fundamental experts, as well as, connections with some of the really, really top people in the industry. So all about surrounding yourself with really good people, because I'm not a fundamental analyst. It would take me, if I've studied price action for say 6-7 years, and I mean, when I say studied, I mean obsessively, night and day working through this, then it would take me at least that time, if not more, to get to this level with fundamental analysis, right? So easier for me to find very good people, rely on their skill sets to plug the gaps in my knowledge while I focus on the TA. But we would take that in, and we're going to take a look at that, mate, as well. So while we're here, let's take a look. We've got an hour just under until we get the CPI print. What would be my triggers for this? If we get a good print here, I think price could find itself forced into this level first. I think we could see something like this, right, where price gets down, takes liquidity here. We've also got some inefficiencies. We've got a balanced price range, which is this bearish gap overtaken with the bullish gap, meaning this whole area should act as strong support. Start catching people offside by driving them lower, and then look for this. Now, the tricky thing here with something like CPI is that we're exposed a little bit to some really, really big rips. So sometimes you just don't, or you're not able to get involved in those. And we get these swings, right? You get these moves to the offside that are designed to trap people. So what we want to do is you want to zoom out, take a breath. And for me, I do still really want to see price back above these levels. Like I said, on a daily scale, if we got a close up here, ridiculous wiggly close like that, if we get something like that here, I'm not as concerned about this midline from a positional sense. I'd be willing to add some here, looking for this to pump, and then, would add more at this level down here, would add more, a lot more here. This is where I'd be going pretty big. All right. Obviously, I'm already fairly well exposed to ETH for a number of years. But if I was looking at this as someone that was just coming into the market, I would certainly be looking at these key levels to add. You either want to see strength, you want to see levels starting to hold. It gives you an indication that buyers are stepping in here, or, you want to be targeting these key support levels to add, and then going Saylor, right? Which isn't, well, Saylor actually just, he does buy all-time highs and says he'll continue to do so, which I think is very brave, but also, he has a strategy for that, and it's certainly not for me to criticize him because he's been so successful with it. But for me, I prefer to buy lower, so I certainly have a lot of bids in and around here, but we might not get it. All right, we might not get it. So with that in mind, let's flip across and take a look at some of these other ones, shall we? What ones did we say that we look at? Palm AI. Okay. Palm AI with our friends over at Mexi. Let's have a look, shall we? Start on a weekly. Okay, interesting. So this was launched on Mexi when back in February. Really nice round bottom here. Good expansion higher. Clear support and resistance level, which is holding here quite nicely. How would I know that? Well, focus on the downside wicks, then go and look if you've got the corresponding. And what I mean by downside wicks is buying absorption. Then look if you've got selling absorption. So just, take out your horizontal line, focus on the extremes of the wicks here, and then find yourself that nice point here. I like to try and anchor to bodies or wicks if I can, at least with one at a point of origin. And we notice that it anchors to the wick of this weekly high. Yeah. All of these wicks down, the bodies hold this area. What happens? We close below it here. What do we do on the retest? We sell the retest until we get the close above. Then we look for price to come back down here. And ultimately what I'm then doing is I'm then drawing this area out to encompass some of the wicks as well. It just allows me to not be as overly focused on a single line. You don't always get that, right? Now, what's interesting here, though, is we can probably move this up a little bit because we've got the data to do so. If I was doing this, just from nowhere, I'd be focused on kind of this area here because you can see it through. But when you've got the data here with the wicks, what you really want to see is price closing above these areas. That's what gives you the indication that you're going to see strength. Obviously, this was a massive close above. Didn't quite get the perfect retest of that level. However, we did later on. Yeah. So if we look at that across there, we can see quite clearly that's where price has held. So as long as we hold this area here on the weekly, I'm expecting price to push up. And there's not really much stopping it here until we kind of get up into this region. So we're going to draw this in here as well. Yeah, our kind of key wick levels that we're looking for. Lock these down. So on the lower time frames, we don't end up moving them around. Yeah, this is kind of, anytime I see an abnormal wick, yes, a really long wick like this, I'm also interested, okay, because then I can just take that, anchor it to there and say, okay, what happened here? Price closed above, showing strength, closed below, retest, sold off, closed back above, closed back below. When it's really messy like that, here, I would have been paying attention to this because when we closed above it and got underneath, this was our deviation. This retest then was ripe for selling, but we closed above it and not respected it again. So I'm not actually really interested in that now. I want as little as possible on my chart, right? Just so that I keep it nice and clean. Now dropping down here to the daily. What have we got? Really nice absorption coming in from that wick there. Price comes down into this gap. Then we're starting to see that kind of bullish momentum come in. Now it's stalling, which is natural. Bitcoin's first, I think, going to draw a lot, or the lion's share of liquidity out of this market, especially at the moment, and especially while we're sat here, especially while we're sat here looking and waiting for traditional prints like we are with CPI today. So that's something that we obviously want to consider. We've taken a look at that. We know we can't really, predict that at the moment. The print was really, really good yesterday. It doesn't mean that CPI is going to wash through the same. So what else am I looking for here? Well, I'm looking for key levels. So I'm just looking for that support and resistance. Now, again, I'm looking here and I'm saying, okay, something's capped the market here. Why? Because these wicks to the upside, look at the downside wicks in this area. So just a case of trial and error. We anchor this here to the highest wick. That's a really, really nice level, right? Highest wick, close above, retest, get back below, resistance, back above, support, back below, resistance, above, support, close below, resistance. Really, really nice level. Now, the next thing I'm looking for, I'm saying, is there anything else super clean down here that we've got? Now, there is this. Again, this is a key wick. Why is that key? Well, something sold price off there. So when we close above it, perfect retest or almost, then this retest here as well. Price held this area, deviated, closed above. And once again, this was the retest into this area. So that's quite a nice level there. So I am interested in that. As I look back, does this provide any more confluence? It really does, yeah? I'm going to make this a little bit thinner just because it's a daily level, not a weekly one. Resistance through here, close above. Back down again, didn't offer support, resistance all the way through here, close above, support all the way through here, close below, resistance here. So then as we move forward, resistance turns support, support, deviation. That's why that area was really, really ripe for buying, in my opinion. All right. And again, it depends on what time frame you're looking to do. Yeah, so from a swing perspective, that would have been a really lovely area there. So at the moment, price is holding this bullish gap, but we've rebalanced it. Okay, so that's significant. Support level, rebalance that gap. Am I interested in shorting this here? Certainly not on this time frame, I'm not. All right, certainly not on the daily. Also, we need to remember that price has kind of come into this low here. We failed to close below that yet. So that's still offering support. Swing low, offering support all the way through. If we started to close below this, an area that's offered key support, then I think we could push back down to take out this low down here. But let's take a look on the 4 hour and see what that gives us. Probably don't want to, well, you wouldn't want to push this much lower than the 4 hour here. You can start seeing the gapping in the candles. That's due to a bit of a lack of liquidity. All right. So as we're in here, what have we seen? Well, nice expansion above this level, a little bit of gapping here. All right. So you've got, volume imbalance in here. Price comes through, wicks have overlapped, but the bodies haven't. So again, it's actually pretty simple here. What I'd like to see, if we're going to go bullish, actually, is maybe a move into those lows, a recovery of this, and then price to go up. But I'm certainly not bearish here. You're kind of neutral, really, because you're coming off a lower low, now a higher high, higher low, and you're kind of saying, okay, well, price could easily also push up from here, but we just don't know yet. All right. As long as we hold this level, I'm more bullish than I am bearish. If the data comes in and supports this, then, these are the kind of things you can really see rip. And also when you're looking for liquidity targets, I'm always looking for untapped swing highs and lows. And there's just a ton of them through here. Yeah. That's the main liquidity to the downside resting here and here. So we could see something like this potentially. But they're the two eventualities. While price is here, I'm much more favoring price moving up from here, especially considering that, the market data could come through quite bullish today as well. So hopefully that was helpful on Palm AI. Jojo, yeah, OPEC report as well. It's very, very tricky, isn't it? Because there's so much information and there's so much data, to consider. You can sometimes get like a little bit of analysis paralysis unless everything kind of all comes together. But there's certainly a lot of key data hitting at the moment from traditional markets. This could easily just be a little bit of a front run into that data, or it could just be acting under its own volition. Why? It's an AI token as well. AI, I think, is going to be the real hot narrative, that RWA as well. Obviously, AI agents, which is massive. So I quite like this, actually. We've had this nice corrective move down. Looking at this as well, looks like it's around about the 0.75 level, which is a key kind of range level here. If we're looking at this, here we go. Right, let me just turn these off for a minute because I think they're going to be a bit distracting. Oh, not that one. That's a really key one. So here we have our range, right? Split into levels. That's taken from the low to the high of this expansion leg higher. That's our kind of trading range here. Now, as we look at this, we want to see kind of reactions, ideally at the golden pocket, which are these the 618 to 66. I think traditionally is normally the 65, but I've always allowed the 66. See how it offered support here. We got the initial pump. Then when we get underneath it and retest it, we sell off. Now, deviated this, failed to get the reaction here. We're kind of stuck here, but look at the 0.75 level. Yeah. That there, reclaimed beautifully. And now we've looked for some liquidity sweeps to push up. So again, just adds a little bit more confidence in there. So I'm really, really happy with this move lower. I think we really could push up from here on Palm AI. Right. Oh, B Alpha, you're very, very welcome. Daniel, hello, mate. Good to see you with us. Right, so we've got a couple more tickers we're going to take a look at before we call it a day. We've got GUAC. Let's have a look. GUAC. What have we got this on then? Not really too familiar with these exchanges, so let's take a look at maybe not that one. Polynex maybe. Wow. Yeah. On a daily, I think, unfortunately, I mean, weekly. I mean, one thing I would say about this is if you want to trade this asset, then very, very simply wait for it to get back above here. I would think, this is obviously just market lows. If you don't think this thing's going to zero, which it very well could be, then this is coming into a good buy area here. But I would never put anything more into an asset like this than it's basically a gamble, because what you're saying is, you throw in whatever you can afford to lose, be it a few bucks, be it a few $100, a few thousand. I don't know what you're kind of playing with here, but what you're hoping for is that you get a 6,444% move to the upside. What I would say is the absorption on these wicks looks like this was launched, big price pump, and this just got dumped on people aggressively. Bit of a pump and dumper. But if there's decent fundamentals and technicals behind, well, there's no technicals behind it really, but if there's decent fundamentals, I'd either look to be a buyer on this above here. Yeah, confirmation here, would add again here, but expect it to go to zero. Or buy it down here, because at the end of the day, if you throw in like whatever $100, then you got potential of a 6,444% upside if this thing does run really hot. But I don't know anything about the technicals, so remember, when you're doing this, you're basically full casino mode here. All right, so do be very, very, very careful on that one, which is Guac. Waiting for that 6,000. Yeah, Yago, mate. No. More data on deck screen. Okay, cool. Yeah, for that. Well, look, I'd research this, to be honest. It's certainly got me interested. You should let me know, man. I know you pop onto the streams quite a lot. I don't know if you're over with us at the Bird Nest as well on the Discord, but certainly mention it. Let's get some FA deep dive into it as well. We'll go to the other analysts and see what we think, because something with a potential 6,500% upside is always worth a little bit of our time, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to look at XRP and then micro, okay, and then we'll call it a day. So XRP. Where are we here? Oh, gone past it. On the weekly, just a monster, isn't it? Look, really, really, really good people that I know that have just been all over this for a long, long time. You can see, when was this? Back in 22. I think it's shortly after I started working for TBN here, but really good friend. Well, really good, but a really, really good guy, and has become a friend over the years. We seem to meet in the most obscure places: Singapore, Paris. Not obscure, but never seem to meet in either his native country or mine, which are very close to one another. But Singapore, Dubai, a couple of times. Dusty, BC, who you've got to give a follow if you don't, guys. Really, really insightful, but huge on XRP. Anyway, on a weekly scale, this swing high is capping the market here, but it's really kind of on the daily and down that we're doing our business here, all right? So we've got a very, very clean range here. What I really want to do actually is save all of this as a group very quickly. And then there we go. Hide all of this. Turn our fixed range back on first of all, so that we can see this from a really clean perspective. So this is the pot. This is where we started to range. So for me, this is a really, really clean volume profile. All right. So back within the value area low, big pump in, held, point of control, really good area here. Back down, held the value area low, and now price is absolutely ripping from there. This kind of area here, I think, is going to be key. And when we turn our levels back on, we're going to see that that actually corresponds quite nicely with our key support and resistance as well. All right, slightly higher here, but look, we've had that close above now, which is really, really exciting, because XRP does look really strong. It does look like it's ready to melt some faces. But actually, a lot of the work we're going to look at this on is going to be on the 4 hour. But again, look, key levels here, close above, retest above, closed above this now, kind of having a little bit of an argument with this level. And then, we're then looking at this level here at about 2.91. Looks to be gunning for that at the moment. But the 4 hour here is the cleanest for me. All the way from back here when we set these highs, closed above, pumped to here, back below, retest, sell off, resistance through here till we pumped above. This was a bit of a sneaky move, but this was news as well. We came back into here. Price sold off quite aggressively, but then regained here. This is a classic manipulation play, getting people the wrong side of the market, driving it into some lows or some gaps, getting people to short to generate liquidity, so then they can say, F you, big players step in and then leave you, or not you, I mean retail, which in that I include myself, but then you get left for dead in these moves high, because it's very difficult to get back in unless you know your levels. When you see this recovery here very quickly, especially when you start to see absorption here, even if you were looking to be a buyer after the bullish engulfing candle here, it gave you plenty of opportunities to get involved, right? As well as this bullish gap that we saw here. That's 3-4 examples I've given you there on how you could have got involved in XRP, as well as just looking at our key highs. Yeah, so what happened here? Swing high here, swing high here. So close above, look for this area on the retest. It can be a really, really simple way to kind of look at these things sometimes, rather than making them too difficult. Now, bullish gap. So while we're reacting in here, I'm not interested in shorting this at all. What I'd like to see is price come down and retest this level here. If price comes down, gives us a tag of this level, we start to see absorption here, lower time frames, look for that recovery pattern, and then we're trading this higher. But XRP looks beautiful. And, huge kudos and shout outs to the crew who know who they are. When they got onto me and they were just like, just stick everything you can afford into XRP here when it broke out and started to consolidate. And it was just ridiculous. It was an unbelievable few days watching this thing just go parabolic. But yeah, XRP looks nice. I think nice and bullish, holding these key levels. We'd like to see a sweep of 2.70. Don't know if we get it, especially with bullish data today. But hope we do. That'd be a really, really good position to start building some swings. So last one we're going to look at today, guys, which is micro. Let me just jump to the comments very quickly in case I've missed anything. Okay, penultimate one we're going to do today, because for Mr. Stone, we're going to take a look at ENA as well, and then we're going to close this up for the day. ENA. So we're going to cover micro and then ENA, guys. So let's have a look at micro. This is an interesting one here. So the question was based around, looking at these kind of, relatively new coins where you really don't have a lot of data, okay? But as I've shown you on all of the other ones, we're going to look at this on the weekly. People will look at this and say there's no data to go on, but there absolutely is, right? There's not a lot of it, but there's enough, which is this. Yeah, key high, wick high, what happens? Price closes above it, so we look for this area to be retested. Retests of this area are for buying, closing below, you're selling back down into these lows, all right? Or not those lows, actually, because on the close of that candle, you also have a big weekly bullish gap down here as well, okay? So that's what we'd be looking at there. Drag this back a little bit, otherwise that's going to be... And let's draw this up. So we've got our W, so we know it's weekly. I do it green for you guys so that you can see it as a bullish gap, but you'll see them as grey on my chart. Then we've got key support down here. Great buying opportunity here as long as the fundamentals align at 0.017870. But again, don't know that we get that, but look, big close, huge buying there. So I think buyers will probably step back in here. Bearing in mind we're on the weekly chart, we've seen the prior week's low swept here and a decent reaction so far. So we want to factor that in. Now we're going to move to the daily and see if this tells us anything else. Now, as we kind of zoom back here, you can see just how perfectly you get the close above, because this is obviously a daily high as well, right, as a weekly. But look at the daily high, rejection here, close above. Look at the perfect retest here and how those bodies respect that level. Absolutely crazy. Now, this is another high I certainly would have been interested in. So let's see how this plays out. Key wick higher. We saw the rejection, price close above, so we look for this area to be a buyer. So would have been a buyer here on the retest, probably got a decent intraday play off the back of that. But then when we close below, we're out of that, and then we're looking for shorts, right? Shorts where to? Well, close below, retest here, driving down towards these lows. When we then produce more liquidity, so what do I mean by that? So when we closed below here, obviously we didn't have this level, right? So, actually, let's just hide that rather than get rid of it. So it's still there for our higher time frame next time. So when we close below here, I am ultimately targeting this low and this support region, okay? So as this plays out, nice, you've got your good shorts, all right? Then price comes back, you get another retest. Remember, retests are for selling. But what new information do we have? We have a new swing low, right? So we have this new swing low here. So price has created its own internal liquidity here, which is here. So then as we go back to here, we can say to ourselves, all right, no problem. That also aligns with our higher time frame level here. And we say, right, now price, as long as it holds beneath here, close above here, we target this high, hold below, you're just targeting shorts into this level. Or if you're not looking to openly trade this intraday or from a swing perspective, then you're just waiting for these levels to be run to add to your positions kind of here and here. As price kind of develops out, we hold below. Then we see this move here, right? And that absorption from the buyers that steps in, we're saying, okay, maybe this isn't coming down to this level. Now, as long as we're holding this, then I'm interested to see price kind of push higher. So let's go down to the 4 hour and see where we can find some more information. Remember, our next swing high is all the way up here, along with this key resistance level. While we're holding this level here, the chances are high that we could push higher. However, we need to remember, things are looking a little bit bearish here after this big drop. So 4 hour, this is where we're going to kind of get the granularity. And one thing that kind of concerns me immediately as I see this chart all the way through here, when things really started to sell off here, look how you got the longer downside wicks here showing absorption, buyers stepping in. Then you start getting the long upside wicks. This is showing absorption and the sellers stepping in. Trap below here, selling off. It's all these upside wicks really making me think this looks a little bit weak, because one of the key things here, as I'm looking across, I'm saying, okay, do we have a key point of support and resistance? Look at what we've discussed on the previous, on the previous assets. So again, just looking at these key kind of highs, there's nothing really clean in here. Just kind of really, whenever you really have to look at these things quite hard, just really, I'm then saying, right, that's it. I'm just focused on these key levels. So something that is of interest to me and always is are gap inversions and just gaps in general, right? They offer really, really good repricing, or not repricing, so really kind of a wrong terminology. It's something I always use as a habit, but I shouldn't really pass that on to you guys. They're areas that basically price is making a decision. Yeah, highs and lows are where liquidity's at. Gaps like to be rebalanced because they're inefficiencies in price delivery. So often you see price retrace to these to fill the inefficiency, right? Now, you're going to get one of a couple of things here. When you get an inversion on a gap, we look for this to offer support. Closes above, yeah? Now, has to close above. The gap's rebalanced on this candle, yeah? Why? Because it's gone through it and this tiny gap here. That means that the gap's now efficient again. So I'm not looking at it from a point of view of offering strong resistance anymore, but I'm also not looking at it as being bullish until we close above it. Then retests for me are for buying. And what you'll also notice there is that we get this really nice bullish gap underneath it, in the same way that this bearish gap here is what was capping the market to the downside. So it's just overall kind of liquidity games. So this is a key area for me. If we're going to drive a bit lower, I think we want to hold this. Why? Because then we've also got this nice clean higher high. This could be the higher low. Actually, let me do it like this, right? Price is selling off, clean low, takes out key liquidity at our high time frame support level. Perfect. Pumps up, sets a higher high. Is this the clear and obvious higher low before price then moves higher? Nice. Or maybe the higher low is going to be set here. Why? Because we have this low that we're coming into. Do that in green. So if price sweeps this low and then recovers, we can look for retests of this level to go higher. And that's certainly how I'd be looking at that there on micro. Obviously, looking at it from an investment perspective, if I wanted to get involved in this, I'd be happy to add a bit there, you know, add a little bit lower and adding all the way down to this line here. As long as it suits my risk to reward profile, I'm okay with that. And I would limit my exposure to this as well. So let's just have a little look. We got a couple of people sneaking at the end. Ali, absolutely for you, my friend. I will take a look at that. And thank you very much for the compliment. Danny Quest, long on Jasmi. Okay, let's do a very quick couple of minutes. ENA, Fet and Jasmi. And then we really do have to call it a day because we're about to go into a live trading session. Let's have a look at this. What was it? So it was Fet. And then Jasmi, which I always call Jamsy for some reason, just weird. So ENA, Fet, and Jasmi. Perfect. Let's go. ENA. ENA here. Okay, interesting. A little bit of support here, but not really much in the way of resistance. Too much of a large kind of area there. No, daily, I think it's going to give us a little bit more clarity on this one. That's clean. Right, we look at this low here. We can see support, a little bit of support, close below, resistance, price sells off. Should it be the wick or should it be the body? I actually think the body's cleaner. All right, come through to this area, resistance again here, close above. So again, with something like this, I would then say, okay, what I want to do is make sure that the information that I've got here is nice and clean and clear. Yeah, there we go. I think something like that looks pretty good to me as a level there. All right, we just see the key areas of support and resistance moving through. So again, this is the key area I'm interested in, 0.6472, and this swing low here also, right? I think we can see some action down here. I'd be very surprised. What I'd love to see, where I'd get excited about this one, is if we wicked below this, recovered this quite quickly. I think then that could be a really, really good sign here that we've got some nice upside coming in. Let's take a look at the 4 hour as well, just to see. Yeah, I mean, immediately this kind of strikes me as well as a key area. Anchoring it to the wicks first of all. And then we just want to adjust this a little bit. But I think I look at this here. This is the kind of area I'd like to see this run up to on the H4. So again, on a lower time frame here, we could see price, or ideally we see price do something like this, kind of grind down here, recover this level, get a bit of market structure up to here. Yeah, then that's where I'd be looking to kind of take some profit, because I then want to see price kind of establish itself here as well before we then move up for the next leg. Just a nice kind of, well, nothing's ever safe, is it, you know, in this game, but pretty as safe as you can be in crypto. All right, that's exactly what I'd be looking for there on ENA. And then it was Fet, wasn't it? What's going on with our friend over here, Fet? I mean, a bit low. Don't expect it to come into this, but, you know, pretty key level there. Resistance, close above, this beautiful retest, which led to the pump. Could be something through here, right? So I'm going to draw this in on a weekly level. And then let's see if we get just this absorption coming in from these wicks is the interesting thing. And then that's the wick high. Deviation, price comes underneath. I think daily will probably tell us a little bit more here in terms of that. I mean, it's obviously quite far away here, but yeah, I would be looking at something like this, I think. Yeah, I think that's pretty nice and clean, actually. Happy with that. Happy to leave that as a line, to be honest. It's really clean and it works. Leave it where it is. So as we look through here, I'm focusing a little bit more on recency. We've got some absorption coming in from these levels here as well. It's not the cleanest. You've got this level down here. You know, if I draw this out as a line very quickly, we look at the absorption below here. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not great though. The data is kind of a little bit cleaner through this section here, right? Because you've got resistance, support, deviation, support through here. So again, I think if we were looking at this, I'd be looking at it a little bit more like something like that. You know, deviation here, price gets above, time spent, good reaction here, sweep, big pump, decent pump off the back of this level here. So I want to see this hold. Again, wouldn't mind price, you know, coming down into these lows here. We've got equal lows. So again, something like this would be really nice. Build that base here, get a retest of that support, drive up into these areas here because we've kind of got a little bit of a support resistance area here as well. All right, with price coming through. Again, when you look back, you can see that it makes a lot of sense, right? Price closes above support all the way through here, close below resistance all the way through here, small deviation. Close above retest. This is a little bit messy, but ultimately we didn't retest that level, but that's certainly an area that we want to be aware of. So yeah, I think that's actually really nice and clean. I'd kind of focus that with FET, on the 4 hour. I think is really clean there. If we don't get that, we just want to see this area hold. All right, so we'd want to see something a little bit more like this, wicking into here, regaining some structure. And then we can look to be buyers here. We know we're wrong below here. And then we would move to the higher time frame plan of holding that level there. And then one more before we're going to call it a day. We got a couple of minutes before we go into our live trading session, which we'll be seeing you legends over for some of there. You're very welcome, Pavel. And Jasmi was the other one, was it? Let's see. Long on Jasmi. Take a look at this on Binance, shall we? Okay, well, I mean, it looks like a good call. It looks like a good call at the moment, mate, because you got a good pivot point here, this high. You know, let's take a look at the key support resistance here. Let's just pop this on a weekly very quickly. No, nothing on a weekly. What have we got? These highs here, not really much. Okay, so I'd be basing this a bit more on recency here, and it's not the greatest in truth, for me, but I think holding this area is okay. I think the key part here is the fact that this low has been swept. And as long as that holds out, then I think that's reasonable. I think you start closing in down below this, we might come into these lows down there. But I think a good print today on the economic data could really send this ripping. So let's take a look at the 4 hour. A little bit of resistance through here, I think, if we're looking at this locally. So if you wanted a safer kind of trade, if you're in from down here, I think that's probably a decent play. Certainly, obviously, I know you'll have your triggers for something a little bit safer if people wanted to get involved in this. I'd recommend that, or not recommend it, but that's what I would be looking for. And then I'm looking for these highs over here to be run as price pushes up. All right, legends, I hope that's been helpful. Anyway, Ali, you're very welcome, my friend. Jojo, you're welcome. Yeah, let me know, actually, with Jojo, with Telcon. I need to run across to do the live trading session now and maybe grab a yogurt or something and certainly make a cup of tea. So if we pop that in chart request, and I'm sure Pip will take a look. If not, I'll take a look for you as well. But look, just want to say a big thank you to everybody for joining live today. The dogs are starting to go mental downstairs, which is pretty funny. But I really look forward to seeing you guys all again next week. If you are interested in trading with us, please do remember you can come and trade with us over at Bybit. You can see the link on the top there. It's thebirdnest.com/Bybit. Get loads of goodies to come and be involved with us over there. And you can find all the links in the description to come and trade with me and the trading team over at the Bird Nest, as well as all the education and goodies that you get with us as well. Have a fantastic week ahead, everyone. Trade safe. Please do keep an eye on the economic data. And I look forward to seeing you all around the nest.